Hello everybody, Mobius Y here with another video for Stellaris Console Edition. So today's video is about your first game. This video is aimed at brand new players to Stellaris Console Edition who just recently downloaded it and are looking to try out their very first game or one of their very first games. I tend to remake these videos and re-upload them after every major update to Stellaris Console Edition, and when the game being bumped up to version 2.6, dubbed Verne, a little over a month ago, I figured it was time to finally get this one public on YouTube once again. So we'll be taking a look at the steps you want to take towards growing your galactic empire in your first or one of your very first games, and I'll discuss some of the major points that are important for brand new players to know in their first game, things that they need to pick up on very quickly in order to learn how to play the game appropriately. So just a heads up, I am recording this on my Xbox One, and I will be naming certain buttons that accomplish certain actions in the game. So they do have different labels on your PlayStation controller if you're playing on PlayStation, but they tend to do the same thing if they're located in the same portion on the controller. So the left and right trigger on the Xbox controller are L2 and R2 respectively on the PlayStation controller. The left bumper and right bumper are L1 and R1 respectively. Clicking the left stick is L3, clicking the right stick is R3, the A button is X, the B button is circle, the Y button is triangle, and the X button is square. Anything else is obviously the same. The D-pad, the sticks, pressing the options key is the equivalent of pressing start, and that brings up the main menu. So do keep that in mind as this video goes through, especially if you are a PlayStation user. Also, I do in fact have all DLC disabled for the purposes of this video, as I figure brand new players to Stellaris Console Edition will not have all or if most of the DLC downloaded. Maybe you just downloaded and are trying out the base game to see if you enjoy it before buying DLC, or perhaps you're trying it out during free play days or using the Xbox Game Pass. Whatever the reason, I've disabled all the DLC. It's really not necessary for a video like this explaining how to get started with your first game. Okay, so before we get started into setting up our game, there's a couple things I do want to note in order to prepare for your first game. So when you are brand new to the game, you'll notice that here in the main menu, your navigation is mainly with the D-pad. Keep that in mind because that is very important, and most of the navigation in the actual game uses the D-pad as well. So do be aware of that. Before actually jumping into a game, I recommend going to the settings menu, and in the gameplay tab, of course you can access any of the tabs using the left or right bumper or L1 and R1, but in the gameplay tab there's a few things you can adjust, such as camera sensitivity, inverting the Y-axis, and most importantly the size of the safe area. Adjusting the safe area in fact adjusts the size of the HUD, and I have heard it both online and in person that some people had difficulty when they started playing Stellaris Console Edition because portions of the HUD were off the edges of their TV screen. So if you find that this is the case in-game, adjust the safe area accordingly so that all aspects of the HUD are immediately visible at a quick glance. This is very important because the HUD displays a lot of information at all times that you need to be able to discern at a moment's notice. So adjust the safe area as needed, and you can adjust this even further in an actual game. The main menu with all these settings can be accessed at any time by pressing the start or the options button and adjusting settings from there, so that you can further adjust, make any additional adjustments, and if you find you don't like them, you can go in and continue adjusting them, or you can settle for something that looks good whilst you are there in the game. There's also some sound settings that you can change as well. I do recommend turning ambient volume way down because there's some sounds in the ambient volume track that are extremely overpowering and loud, but I'll leave that up to you to figure out. Okay, so obviously when you are playing your first game, when you're setting up a brand new game in Stellaris Console Edition, you're going to take the new game option. There are 3 further selections from here. So Create New Empire is one of the true joys of Stellaris Console Edition, where you get to create your own custom empire from scratch. You select what their species looks like, their various physical traits, the ethics and civics that are the guiding principles behind that empire, giving it a name, its homeworld, all that cool stuff. One of the true joys of Stellaris, hands down, but I do recommend avoiding this for your first game until you have a better grasp of the mechanics and have some understanding of how the various aspects of the game interact with each other. So for your first game, you're probably going to ignore Create New Empire. You're definitely going to want to ignore Randomize Empire, because this does exactly what it suggests. It creates a completely random empire, which could wind up giving you a bad combination of species traits, ethics, and civics that don't work very well. So I recommend staying away from this until you garner far more experience with the game and are familiar with how things work and can recite most of the game's mechanics by memory. So obviously that means you're going to be selecting an empire that is already available in the game. So the cool thing about Stellaris Console Edition is that your custom empires are also included in this list of empires that you can select. You can see that mine are here at the top of the list. However, for your first game, until you create your own custom empires, you're just going to have this list of pre-made empires that the game has for you, and each one plays quite differently, having very different governing ethics and civics and species traits. So they do behave very differently, but it is a good starting point for figuring out what kind of empire you like to play as. For your first game, I do recommend sticking with just one of the human empires, and these are the United Nations of Earth and, of course, the Commonwealth of Man. These two empires are led by humans as the dominant species, and they do behave quite differently. The United Nations of Earth is leaning more towards cooperative diplomacy, getting along with others, and engaging in various aspects of trade and even forming a federation with other empires, whereas the Commonwealth of Man is a little more kind of going their own way. They have a much more militaristic society where they like to flex their military might and subjugate other empires rather than work with them cooperatively. So for the purposes of this video, I'm going to pick the United Nations of Earth. You can go with either one of these, however, for your very first game. They do play quite differently, but for the purposes of this video, there's a lot of things that are just going to be the same. So once you select your empire, you're taken to this game details screen. I'm not going to fiddle around too much with this particular screen. I'm simply going to suggest pressing X or square to set the options to default, and then from there you can use the D-pad to move to the further options. Change the galaxy size to small by pressing left on the D-pad once. From here you can also adjust how many AI empires are in the game. By default, it normally has 3. However, if you want to have all the time in the world to explore the galaxy with no pressure of other empires rivaling you and potentially being hostile towards you, you can set this to 0. This gives you plenty of time to explore the galaxy, learning the mechanics of the game, learning how to manage your empire internally without any external pressures weighing down on you, such as I mentioned, hostile empires with superior fleets or something like that. But if you do want to engage in diplomacy and try it out just to see what it's like, you can leave the AI empires set to 3. The other thing that you might want to change is down at the very bottom. So if you use the D-pad to go all the way down, you can set Iron Man mode either on so that you can earn achievements while you play, or you can set it off so that you can save the game at any time and have multiple save files. When Iron Man mode is on, there is only one save file that overwrites every in-game month, and it creates that save again and overwrites it again whenever you save and quit to the main menu. So I do suggest trying out Iron Man mode so that you get used to seeing the ramifications of your decisions in the long term as the game goes on, and you can earn some achievements very easily in your very first game. But if you want to have multiple save states so that you can go back to a previous point in the game and correct what you feel may have been a mistake earlier on, then you can play with Iron Man mode off. I'm just going to make a couple adjustments here for the purposes of this video, but as I said, I suggest leaving these all to default once you change the galaxy size to small. And with that being said, when you're ready to play, simply hit the A button or X on PlayStation, and you get this confirmation window asking, are you sure you want to start? And you simply press A again, and the galaxy starts being generated from the game. Every galaxy in Stellaris Console Edition, whenever you start a new game, is procedurally generated so that no two games are ever the same. The empires will be placed differently in the galaxy. You will start in a different location in the galaxy. The galaxy itself will be laid out differently with its stars in different positions. You name it. No two games of Stellaris Console Edition are ever the same, and it's one of the true joys of this game and why it's so replayable. So, just to be aware, as we're going through this video, there's a lot of alerts that will pop up on the screen that I will simply skip over, as they're largely not important for the purposes of this video, and you will very quickly learn what they are in your first game or your first couple of games, so there's not really a point in going over them. However, this very first screen, when the galaxy has been generated and you first load in, this is just a summary screen going over what the governing ethics and civics are for your empire, the main species and its traits, as well as what your homeworld is. And on the right hand side, you can adjust through this box of text with the right stick. It just gives a brief history of your empire leading up to the current time in the game. So you can read through that at your own leisure, and whenever you're ready to begin, you once again press the A button, or X on PlayStation. And when you do that, you are immediately taken to your home system. So this is in fact the humans' home system of Sol. Our camera is in fact pointing at our homeworld of Earth. So one of the most important sets of controls in Stellaris Console Edition is the camera controls. You use the left stick to pan the camera around in order to take a look at different objects. The right stick controls the angle of the camera. You'll see that for the most part there is a limit on how low of an angle you can move the camera, as well as how high of an angle you can move the camera. To zoom in, you press right trigger, or R2, and to zoom out, you press left trigger, or L2. These are the basic camera controls that you really want to familiarize yourself with as quickly as possible, because all of these camera controls move this cursor that is in the middle of the screen. The reason for getting used to moving the camera to move the cursor is because this cursor actually selects objects of interest when it is near them. For example, I've zoomed in really close to a bunch of ships that are actually under our control. As you can see here, when it's close, when the cursor is close to one of these ships, it lights up a little bit, or even has a little arrow pointing at them when it is nearby. That indicates that by pressing the A button or the X button, you can then select that object in question. The same goes for space stations. For example, this mining station on the Sol star, or even a planet that is under our control, such as Earth. Here it takes you to the planetary screen, so on and so forth. So that is very crucial to know. Get used to the camera controls as quickly as possible. They're pretty easy to remember and easy to get used to. So to change from what is called system view, which is what we are in right now, you want to click the right stick, or R3 on PlayStation. What this does is it will take you to galaxy view, so you can see the entire galaxy. So by clicking right stick, boom, we are taken to galaxy view, and the same camera controls apply here. So I'm going to hit the left trigger to zoom way out, and this is the entire galaxy that we are playing in. Each of these little dots represents a star system that we can explore and eventually travel to. These lines that you can see leading between these different points in the galaxy, those are the hyperlanes that indicate which systems connect to each other that your ships can travel through, and how your ships will travel throughout the galaxy. As I said, the same camera controls apply here. The triggers will zoom in and out. The left stick will move the camera around, and the right stick will rotate the camera angle. So to go back into system view, you simply move the cursor near a system you want to look at, and you can either press the A button, or you can even click the right stick when the cursor is near that system. So by going back to Sol, we simply move close to it, click the right stick, and we are looking back at our system, where a lot of stuff here happens quite quickly. So with the camera controls down, let's move on and talk about the heads-up display. There are 4 sections of the heads-up display, and each portion of them is accessible via the D-pad. So with nothing selected, with no units or planets or anything like that selected, by pressing any portion of the D-pad, you'll be taken to a different part of the HUD, and from there you can execute further actions. So let's start with the top of the HUD. You can access this by pressing up on the D-pad, and you'll see there's a cursor up there in the top left now. The top portion of the HUD is generally a breakdown of your resources. So we'll go through a brief summary of them from left to right. So these first three resources here, the yellow C with the lightning bolt, the red gem, and the green apple icon, these are considered your basic resources. The first one here is your energy credits. These are kind of a galactic currency, and they represent how much energy your empire can generate on a monthly basis. They are used to do all sorts of things. For example, doing something called clearing tile blockers on planets so that they're more habitable. You can use them in trades with other empires. You can also sometimes use them to purchase various things from certain entities in the galaxy that you can communicate with, other empires, or even certain enclaves. And you can also use them in lump sum payments to start terraforming planets, for example. So energy credits are one of the three main basic resources, and you'll find that they are used quite commonly. We will in fact be able to use them a little bit later on. So what do the numbers below the symbol mean? You'll see on the left side that 100 indicates our current stockpile of energy credits, and that plus 36 on the right hand side is how much energy credits we are generating each month. We'll actually go over the in-game timer a little bit later once we go through these portions of the HUD. As time goes on, you do want to see your actual resource production increase as you develop your economy and expand your empire. You'll see that, for example, this plus 36 energy credits per month, it should generally be going up as more time goes on. So you can actually use left and right on the D-pad to further check out the other resources in this top portion of the HUD. If we go to the right one more section, we're now looking at minerals. Minerals are the raw resources that are extracted from planets. They're used in a lot of different types of construction, mostly planetary construction, doing things like constructing districts and buildings on planets, and they're also used to construct certain types of stations in space. For the most part, though, minerals tend to get used up to create more advanced resources, which we'll actually touch on in just a bit. So as time goes on, you do want to be improving your production of minerals that you get every month. And again, we have 100 minerals currently stockpiled, and we're currently generating 26 minerals per month, as indicated by the plus 26. So the next resource, this green apple, is food. This represents the basic sustenance required for the survival of your population, of your species that is present within your empire. So food is kind of like nutrient paste. Everybody has a necessary amount of nutrient paste to get all their vitamins and minerals necessary for their biological survival. Food is something that you don't necessarily have to be improving its production constantly as time goes on, but you do want a decent amount of production in order to keep your populations fed. Otherwise, they will be very upset that they're starving, for example. And as you can see, previously mentioned, we had stockpiles of 100 minerals and 100 energy credits. At the start of the game, you start off with 200 food, and we're currently generating 23 each month. Let's move on and take a look at some of our more advanced resources. This first one here, this kind of little orange basket with a couple items in it, these are consumer goods. As I said, these are an advanced resources. So where food is your basic sustenance required for your your populations to continue their survival, consumer goods are basically things that keep them happy. Apple Watches and shawarmas and that kind of extra special stuff that people really like to live a happy and fulfilling lifestyle. Consumer goods represents those items necessary to keep your pops happy. They're mostly used as a kind of upkeep for more advanced people that work certain jobs within your empire, and we'll touch on jobs just a little bit in this video. And we'll go on to the next resource now, which is kind of a light purple with a little bit of blue in there, but it's largely represented by multicolored ingots. These are alloys. This is another advanced resource. Alloys are the metals that are created when you melt down the minerals that you extract from your planets to make harder materials that are more used in a military application. Alloys tend to be used for the construction of ships, also for the construction of certain stations in space, namely starbases, which are used to expand your territory. And if you have the necessary DLC, alloys are used to construct megastructures as well. So alloys are not necessarily, alloys and consumer goods, since they're both advanced resources, they're not exactly generated naturally. As I said, they are simply, they're more advanced resources that use the raw resources, namely minerals, that you extract from your planets, and then they get converted into these advanced resources of consumer goods and alloys. So where minerals are the raw resources pulled out from the crust of your planet, the consumer goods are things that are pretty much manufactured to keep your pops happy, and the alloys are think of it as the minerals is the iron, whereas the alloys is the smelted down steel used in much more advanced construction throughout your empire. The next region over, this actually brings a little drop down and shows multiple resources. The names of them aren't too important right off the hop, but these are your strategic resources. These are extremely rare and extremely valuable resources that are used in much more advanced types of construction and technologies as time progresses in this particular game. You will be a little bit more familiar with what kind of strategic resources are really important and which ones you're going to be using on a regular basis. I will, in fact, do a video in the future touching on strategic resources and just how useful they are throughout the Empire as a whole. So the next resource over, this really dark purple kind of circular thing with a little person outline in it. This is influence. This is a bit more of an abstract resource. It's not something that you harvest from a planet, for example. It's generated over time by default. And influence, as the name suggests, it represents your government's influence both internally within your empire and externally on the rest of the galaxy. Influence is used in a multitude of ways. You can use it to enact things called edicts, which affect your whole empire and can give additional bonuses. You also use it to enact some decisions that are made on planets to give those planets certain bonuses or have certain things happen. And it's also used to do things like expand your territory. We'll actually touch on the most important use of influence a little bit later in this video. So I will actually do a more detailed video on influence sometime in the future. Next up, these two very light blue kind of chain links making a cross icon. This is Unity. This is another kind of abstract resource. It's just generated sometimes from jobs, but there is a base amount that is generated by default. This kind of represents the societal and cultural progress of your empire. As you generate Unity, once you have enough Unity produced after a certain amount of time, you use that Unity and spend it to adopt what are called traditions. Traditions are one of the ways that your empire progresses in this game. We'll touch on traditions a little bit later, but just be aware that the more Unity you are generating, the faster you unlock said traditions. Now the next one, this microscope icon, this represents science. Until you move the cursor over it, it gives you the amount of total science you're producing, but as you can see, when I move the cursor over it, the total science we are producing was broken down into 3 categories. Science is used to unlock technologies. The more science you are producing throughout your empire, the faster you unlock more technologies, the faster you will get more advanced technologies throughout the game. So science, as I mentioned, does have 3 branches. It's broken out into physics, society, and engineering. Science, or research as it's often called in this game. This is another resource that is generated through various jobs that your population works, and it is very important that you are producing a decent amount of science as the game progresses. So this next one, this represents what is called empire sprawl and administrative capacity. I did have an older video explaining the mechanics behind this, but there will be a newer one in the future that goes into more detail because there have been some changes to the mechanics behind empire sprawl and admin cap in the 2.6 update. Generally speaking, certain things have a cost in science or Unity, namely technologies and traditions. And those costs do go up if your empire sprawl goes over your administrative capacity. It represents the empire's ability to to communicate from one side of the empire to the other. So as time goes on, as you have more territory, as you expand your territory to cover more systems, as you colonize more worlds and have more populations on those worlds, your empire sprawl will go up. And there are definitely ways to increase your administrative capacity to keep it above your empire sprawl. This next little bit here, these are your envoys. These are used for more advanced means of diplomatic communication between other empires and even in the galactic community. I'm going to have to do a video in the future going over envoys and how you can use them, because there's a lot of things they can do for you. As time goes on, though, in your first game, do try to use them a little bit and just kind of familiarize that they are there. Every empire has a maximum number of envoys, and there are ways to increase them, but most of the time you only start with one. Because we're playing as the United Nations of Earth, though, they get a bonus and have 2 envoys at the start of the game. So I will be touching on these in much greater detail in a future video. This next icon represents your empire's total population. When you move this cursor over it, it gives you a breakdown listing all of the species that would actually be living throughout your empire if you had more than one. So if you were ever curious what the demographics in your empire was, you can take a quick glance here. It'll give you a really brief rundown of that. Now, these last 3 icons on the far right, you don't generally have to worry about them too much in your first game, because you're going to be worrying more about managing your empire, producing resources, generating more resource production, expanding your territory, things like that. But I will touch on these. So this first one here, where it says 1 out of 3, this is what's called starbase capacity. This is a soft cap which you can go over. This represents your maximum amount of starbases that you can have that are upgraded, not built. It doesn't count all of your starbases, because there is a very, very basic level of starbase that it simply expands your territory, and it does not count towards your starbase cap. That will be explained better a little bit later in this video. Next up is your naval capacity. This represents the maximum number of ships that your empire can logistically support without incurring further penalties. If you do build more ships than you have naval capacity, the maintenance required to keep those ships in working order does in fact go up. So there are penalties if you go over this, just like your starbase capacity. But again, it is a soft cap. You can go over it. Naval capacity is something that I will definitely have to go over in a future video. And this last one, this is diplomatic weight. This is used to basically swing your clout around in the galactic community if it gets formed, involving the enacting or opposing of resolutions. And I'm going to do a video in the future about the galactic community, so stay tuned for that. If the galactic community does get formed in your first game, then this value does play a significant role within that galactic community. But that's a really brief overview of the resources. The main ones you want to watch for are the 5 on the far left, namely your energy credits, your minerals, your food, your consumer goods, your alloys, and then your influence, your unity, and your science. Those are the main ones you really want to be keeping an eye on. So it's really only about half of the HUD that you want to familiarize yourself with, or in the top portions of the resource bar. The next portion of the HUD that we'll take a look at is the outliner, and this is on the right side of the screen, which you can access by pressing right on the D-pad. This gives a really quick summary of things that are happening in your empire. When you press right on the D-pad and access the outliner, you then use up and down on the D-pad to go to these different sections of the outliner. You can then press the A button to open these little drop-down menus. And this is just a really quick way to select units, namely various ships and various worlds within your empire, for really quick and easy access. So I could have the camera anywhere in the galaxy. I could be looking at something completely different, and yet I can still go over to the outliner at any time by simply hitting right on the D-pad, and then I can look at our home planet of Earth and just get a brief summary of what's happening over there. So the outliner is strictly used for that when you want to select objects, ships, planets that are within your empire that are simply not on your screen right now. It is very, very quick and easy access to selecting everything that is going on in your empire at once. It shows a lot of things at a glance, and as time goes on, there will be more things that get added to the outliner. For example, when you're terraforming planets, there's a new drop-down that appears for that. When you get more star bases, there's another drop-down that appears to look at all of your upgraded star bases. Another nice thing you can do is when you're in the outliner, if you highlight something with the cursor, you can actually click the left stick or press L3 on PlayStation, and you will snap the camera to what it is you have selected. For example, I can look at our military ships over here, or I can snap the camera back to Earth. And you can even do this when you are looking in another system or somewhere else on the galaxy. If I move the cursor over to Earth, I click the left stick, and the camera snaps to the system where the planet Earth is located. So that just helps you with some really easy navigation. Next up, we have the bottom of the heads-up display. This is largely a black band in the middle, and this is where your notifications will appear. Whenever notifications appear down here in this bottom area, they will appear down here, and you can access them by pressing down on the D-pad to quickly address them if they require your immediate attention. As you can see right now, it's telling me that there are some technologies available that we can research in all three branches: the physics, the society, and the engineering branches of research. They're currently not researching technology. We'll go over that in a little bit here, but just do be aware that when notifications pop up, they show up in the very bottom portions of the HUD, and the announcer will also give you an audio cue when something important happens. For example, you have finished researching your current technology, or when your science ship has finished surveying a system, so on and so forth. Okay, so the next portion of the HUD is on the left side, and this all involves Empire management. You can access it by pressing left on the D-pad when you have nothing selected, and there, as you can see, there's lots of little boxes here that you can sift through. You simply pick which one you want by pressing up and down on the D-pad, and there's a lot of different screens here. The very first one is this government screen. When you open it up, it gives a summary of your empire, and you can also see that there are additional tabs which are accessible by pressing left and right bumper, or L1 and R1. Every single one of these screens will open up a submenu that has multiple tabs to it, so do be aware of that. The next one is the contacts screen. When you open this up, if there are any AI empires or other entities, for example enclaves, that you have encountered throughout the galaxy, they will show up in this list of contacts, where you can move the cursor over them and then select them and quickly start communicating with that particular empire in question. The next screen down is the situation log. There's a couple tabs on this one. The situation log itself is kind of like a quest tracker. You can keep an eye on it to look for things to do throughout the galaxy, and if you hit right bumper, you go over to the anomalies tracker, which is a really handy addition from the 2.2 upgrade that we got over a year ago. This keeps track of anomalies that your science ships have discovered. So we'll go over anomalies in a future video for sure, but you can kind of think of this one as a quest log. If there's interesting things going on in the galaxy that you can check out, they will show up in both the situation log and in the anomalies tab as well. So this next screen is the technology screen. This is the most important one that I want new players to familiarize yourself with. When you open this up, the first tab is the current research tab. This shows you what technologies you are currently researching in all three branches of science. As I said, physics is in the top row there, society is in the middle row, and engineering is in the bottom row. So the different technological branches are divvied up into these three sections, and you use this screen to assign the scientists that are heading these research branches, as well as what technologies you are researching. It also displays some other information at a glance that is very useful as well. But if you want to take a look at how much longer you have before your scientists have finished researching their current technology projects, you can simply come to this screen at any time. There is also the researched tab, which shows what technologies you have completed. This one does take a little bit to load as time goes on, and you research way more technologies in the later portions of the game. So do be aware that the game does kind of freeze up on you when you're loading this most of the time. And this last tab is relics. Relics is a fairly new mechanic, and I'll definitely have to do another video of these in the future. But just know for now that relics are really powerful items that you can get in the later stages of the game to use them to help out your empire. But as I said, the most important one is this current research tab of the technology screen. The next one down is the market. From here, you can actually buy and sell resources for energy credits. If you find that you have too many minerals, you can sell some of those minerals and get more energy credits. Or if you find that you are lacking in food, you can spend some energy credits to buy some more food. For example, for now, I'm actually going to sell a little bit of our food, and you'll see that our stockpile of energy credits, in fact, did go up to 239 since I sold all 200 of our food. That's just a really brief example of how the internal market works. You can play around with this on your own free time. The column on the left is for buying the resource in question, and the column on the right is for selling the resource in question. You simply select which resource you want to buy or sell with the cursor, then press the A button to access the buying and selling options. The market is something that you're going to have to play with on your own time. I will probably do a video of it in the future. The next screen is the cosmography screen. This looks at all the planets and sectors within your empire, as well as it also has the expansion planner, which is a really handy resource, and I am definitely going to do a video on this in the future because I've been using it since this game launched, and I think more people should be aware of how it works. The next screen down is the second most important screen, in my opinion, that new players need to familiarize themselves with. This is the Society screen. The three tabs that it has are Traditions, Policies, and Edicts. The most important one on this screen is, of course, the Traditions tab. As I mentioned before, traditions are kind of another way for your empire to progress beyond just researching more advanced technologies. And as I mentioned previously, as time progresses and your empire stockpiles more unity, once enough unity has been stockpiled, you can do what is called adopt a tradition. And these traditions kind of represent the core beliefs and tenets that your empire, your society believes in and holds as high value. And adopting these traditions gives you additional bonuses as time goes on and your empire progresses. So the next screen down is the People screen. In the very first tab, this is the Leaders tab. From here, you look at all the available leaders that are in your empire. Leaders are really special individuals that can help. They can help with managing the smaller aspects of your empire. You can have governors that govern various sectors of your empire, and they will actually apply various bonuses to the colonies within those sectors. Scientists are the most important one, and you're going to want to get familiar with how you assign leaders to tasks and how you recruit new leaders, especially with your scientists, because you need several scientists from the very beginning of the game. They help research new technologies, and they also command the science ships that you will be using to explore the galaxy. And the last two are admirals and generals. Admirals lead your military fleets. They just offer additional bonuses to your military fleets that they're assigned to. And generals lead your armies. They offer additional bonuses to the armies that they are leading. There are additional tabs in the People screen, but I'm not really going to go over them right now. I will have to go over factions in a future video, but you do want to familiarize yourself with this leader list screen, and we'll actually touch on this a little bit later when we have to recruit a new leader. The next screen down is Fleets and Ships. This shows you your fleet manager and your ship designer. These are things I'll have to cover in a completely separate video, as they are quite complicated portions of the game that I simply can't touch on in this video. The next one down is the Galactic Community. It's only available once the Galactic Community has been formed, so obviously I can't touch on it here. That will be for a future video. The next one down with the 5 stars in a kind of pentagonal shape, this is an option that becomes available and represents internal management of your federation. A federation is a very close-knit alliance between different empires that cooperatively work together to achieve common goals in the galaxy. This becomes available if you wind up becoming part of a federation. The next one down with the 2 crossed swords is the War screen. This again opens up when you are at war with another empire. It shows you there will be an overall status of the war, how it's going for you and how it's going for your opponent, and from there you can actually try to settle for peace after a certain amount of time. So this does open up once you are actually at war, if another empire declares war on you or you declare war on another empire. The second to last screen down is claims. You can spend influence. Remember, that's one of the resources at the top there. The really dark blue-purple one. You can spend influence to do what's called lay a claim on another empire's territory. You're basically saying, hey, I like that star system. I want it. That's what laying a claim does. I will have to do another video about claims, although they mostly pertain to war. And lastly, we have the map modes. You open this up and there is a bunch of different types of map modes that are available that changes the visual flair of the game while you are playing it. Play around with this on your own time and pick a map mode that suits you. Okay, so with all of that out of the way, let's go ahead and get some stuff going on here. So before we really jump in and get moving, we need to make sure that we also unpause the game so that time is progressing. And how do you know that the game is paused? Well, if you look in the very bottom left, you'll see that in the very bottom left area there is the 2 bars that are blinking, indicating that the game is currently paused. The 3 orange arrows that you see next to it point at a number. The number reads 2200.01.01. That is the year, month, and day of the current galactic time. So Stellaris has things happen when you are constructing things, when you are researching things. It will often require a certain amount of time to complete. Sometimes constructing a station or a building requires a certain amount of days before it completes. Researching new technologies requires a certain amount of months before they complete. And sometimes the requirement of days and months before that particular thing completes is so long that it takes several years to happen. So at any time, you could pause the game or unpause the game as well by pressing the Y button or triangle if you're on PlayStation. As you can see, by unpausing, that day number on the very far right has jumped up a few days. We are now on day 5 of the first month of the year 2200. So by unpausing the game, that is how time actually progresses. And you can also hold the Y button or triangle on PlayStation to actually change the speed that the timer is going. So when the single green arrow is filled, it is at the slowest speed. The 2 arrows means it's at its kind of normal default speed. And with 3 arrows, it's going as fast as it can. So I'm going to leave the timer running and let's get into the next portion of this particular video. Now, remember, Stellaris is a 4X game, and the 4X's stand for Explore, Expand, Exploit, and Exterminate. So I need to go over 3 of those 4X's. We're going to start with Explore. So, one of the first things you're doing in the very beginning of every game you play is you are exploring. Namely, you're exploring the galaxy. And how you do that is you use your science ships. So let's go back into the Sol system here. We can either move our cursor over the science ship that we can select with the A button once we have the camera pointing at it, or for easier access, we can simply access the outliner by pressing right on the D-pad, moving the cursor over the science ship, and selecting the science ship from there. Now, with our science ship, we go back into the galaxy view, and what we want the science ship to do is survey neighboring systems. When you move the cursor over a neighboring system, you'll see that the cursor changes a little bit, and you can actually press the A button to issue orders to your science ship. We have the orders of explore or survey the system. When the science ship is exploring the system, it simply flies into that system, checks out what's there, and then it can fly away and do some other orders. When it's surveying the system, the science ship will in fact scan every celestial body in that system looking for cool things of interest, namely resources. So we want the science ship to actually survey this system. By ordering it to do that, that orange line appeared, and you can see that the science ship has actually flown into the new star system of Barnard's Star. Now that the Barnard Star has been theoretically explored just by having a science ship move into the system, it will in fact begin surveying all of the planets, the star, any asteroids that are here, and scanning for really interesting resources. So when you are in the very beginning portions of the game, you want to be exploring the galaxy as fast as possible. A very easy way to do that is to simply have a second science ship. And to do that, you can move to the shipyards portion of the outliner and select the Sol station. The reason why this is a shipyard is because it is actually an upgraded starbase that has a shipyard module. And you notice that one of the 3 tabs that is available is the shipyard tab. When you first open up this screen, we're on the Starbase tab. Hit the right bumper to go to the Defenses tab. Hit right bumper again to go to the Shipyard tab. And from here, you'll see in the left-hand column, there are options to build ships. We want another science ship, and the cost of this will be 100 alloys to construct it, and it will require 60 days. So we can queue up construction of the science ship, and it will show up in the Shipyard queue column on the right-hand side there. And as you can see, time is progressing with each day that goes by. There are less days remaining before the science ship is finished construction. And we'll actually get an alert once it has finished construction in just a second here. So now we have a new science ship that we can actually access in the outliner under the civilian ships section. You'll notice, though, that there is no leader assigned. When we select this science ship, we don't have a scientist assigned to it. So we need to we need to first hire a new scientist leader, and then we need to assign said scientist leader to this particular science ship so that we can have it exploring the galaxy. So we can select the science ship, hit right bumper to go over to the Manage tab, and then move the cursor down to this box that says Recruit Leader. It has the big orange plus icon in it. When we press A to confirm the Recruit Leader option, we're taken back to the leader list, and you'll see that we're specifically looking at the column of scientists. So all of our current scientists are busy doing stuff. This one is busy leading physics research. This one is busy leading society research. This one is busy leading engineering research. And this one is busy commanding the other science ships. So we need to recruit a new leader. We'll move the cursor over Recruit New Leader, press the A button or X on PlayStation, and you're given a list of additional available scientists that you can recruit. Recruiting a new scientist will cost 200 energy at this point in the game, so we can simply pick one that is either the youngest or has a special trait that would be helpful. Right now, let's take the Expertise Materials guy. We'll recruit him, and now we have him in our list of available scientists, and it shows that he is in fact available. So when we move the cursor over Nasir al-Jalani that we just recruited, we can press the A button again, and he is now assigned to this science ship. We can now send this science ship into new unexplored systems to survey them. So by going back to the galaxy map, we can in fact chain orders. Rather than order the science ship to explore systems one at a time, we can chain orders and have it explore multiple systems before it finishes. So to do that, we simply move the cursor over an unexplored system, and instead of pressing the A button to assign an order, we press X or square. I have to reselect them. We press X or square on the PlayStation controller, and we are instead chaining an order. We select Survey System again with the D-pad, press the A button, and now he's going to fly over and start surveying that unknown system. But we can do this on another system. Move the cursor over that system, press X to chain an order, and order him to survey that system. You'll see that the orange line has now extended to another system for him to go and survey. We'll do it a third time, press X, survey system. Now he's going to go survey several of these systems before he stops. We're going to do the same with the other science ship by selecting it in the outliner. Move the cursor over a neighboring star system, press X to chain an order, select Survey System, and we'll do that multiple times. Now this science ship is going to fly off and survey all of these systems that we have told it to. So that is the Explore portion of using your science ships. You want them to spread out throughout the galaxy and scan for resources and, most importantly, habitable worlds that you can colonize. So with that out of the way, let's actually go ahead and do some additional things that are much more internal in our empire. We're going to select our technology projects so that we can progress. Let's ignore that for a second. So by selecting one of these three notifications saying that we have available research projects, we're taken back to the technology screen, but we're given options for our research projects. These are also things you can do by going to the left side of the HUD by pressing left on the D-pad, and when you go to the technology screen, you are taken to the current research screen yet again. By moving the cursor over Select Research, let's say we want to select our physics project, we go over Select Research, and then we're given these same technology projects that are available to us. A really good one to start with is Quantum Theory, so I'm going to pick that one. And you'll see that now that box where it said Research Not Selected previously, it shows that we are currently working on a project. Right now, it will take 33 months before this technology finishes researching. As the months go on, this project will be getting researched, And once it is finished, we then have unlocked that technology, and we get the bonuses assigned to it. So by increasing the amount of science we're producing, that is how we in fact unlock these technologies even faster. So let's go ahead and select our society research project. We have genome mapping, which is a really good one, but we also have planetary unification, which is another pretty dang good one. I'm going to start with planetary unification because this gives us additional monthly unity. And lastly, engineering. Let's select the research project there. And we have not terribly good options: ceramic metal materials, coil guns, afterburners. Let's go ahead and select coil guns. So now that we have selected our research projects, you'll see that they all have different times required before they will finish researching. So we can just sit back and wait for those to finish up, but we actually have more important stuff to do throughout the Empire rather than just sit there and watching our technologies finish. I've gone ahead and paused the game for a second as I wanted to go over the other aspect of Empire progression in the game. So we've gone ahead and selected our first set of research projects to unlock more technologies for our Empire. That is the main source of progression in the game. The second source of progression is, as I said, unlocking traditions. So by going to the society screen, you'll see that at the top there, it shows that we have earned enough unity to unlock our first tradition. Once this happens, there is usually an alert that appears at the very bottom of the HUD in the notifications bar that you can then access, and it will take you to this tradition screen. So, as you can see, there are 7 tradition trees. Each set of traditions is broken down into one of these different trees. And the reason for that is each tradition tree actually gives you a different set of bonuses that relates to that particular tradition tree. So, when you are starting off a brand new game, the 2 main tradition trees that I highly recommend you start with are either the expansion tradition tree or the discovery tradition tree. And the reason for this is that by doing the expansion tree, you get bonuses to colonizing new worlds. Your population grows faster, and you can expand your territory more quickly by taking the bonuses from the expansion tradition tree. The discovery tradition tree helps with your scientists that are exploring the galaxy. They will survey the galaxy faster. They will have additional bonuses to them, and you actually do get a little bit of a bonus to your research speed, meaning you'll get new technologies faster. So for the sake of this video, I'm going to start with the discovery tree. So there are 6 stages to each tradition tree. The first step is adopting the entire tradition tree to begin with. Adopting a tradition tree will give you an inherent bonus right off the bat. So with the cursor up there in the adopt box there in the top left, I press the A button to confirm that I want to adopt the discovery traditions, and it's going to cost me a bunch of unity. So I hit OK, and I have now adopted the discovery tradition tree. And then as I acquire more unity over time, I can then continue adopting more discovery traditions. And I do, in fact, have enough unity stockpiled where I can adopt one of these 5 traditions in the discovery tree. Once you have enough unity to adopt more traditions, the game will automatically color in the particular traditions that are available to you, because there is a level of progression to these. For example, this bottom row of traditions, I can only select the science division option, which is the very bottom left option in the discovery tradition tree. The reason why I can't select the next one, polytechnic education, or even the last one in the bottom right here, which is faith and science, is because if you notice there is a little green arrow that points from the left to the right, meaning that I have to adopt the tradition on the left-hand side first before I can adopt the next ones on the right. So if I wanted to adopt polytechnic education, I would first need to adopt science division, so on and so forth. The first tradition I want to adopt, though, is this "to boldly go" one in the top left. This increases survey speed by another 35% and increases the chance of our science ships disengaging from combat. So I'm going to adopt the "to boldly go" tradition, and you'll see that the next one over here, databank uplinks, is in fact colored in now for my second tradition pick. I don't want to take databank uplinks. I actually want to take science division for the second tradition. So I move the cursor over, press A. It asks me to confirm. I press A, and now you can see that both To Boldly Go and science division are in fact colored tiles instead of grayed out, indicating that I have selected those traditions. So I am getting additional bonuses from picking those traditions. There are additional bonuses from these remaining 3 traditions in the discovery tree, and there is in fact a 7th bonus that we get from the discovery tree once we have adopted all 5 of the discovery traditions. Every time you complete a tradition tree, you get 7 bonuses. Adopting it gives you a bonus, the 5 traditions in the tree give you a bonus, and there is what's called a finisher effect when you adopt all 5 traditions in that tree. So you do get 7 bonuses. Once you have completed a tradition tree, you also unlock, in the bottom right here, what is called an ascension perk. Ascension perks are 8 additional bonuses that you can get applied to your empire, and most of them are quite powerful. The other aspect of ascension perks is that they cannot be changed. So you need to make sure that you pick ones that you want to use for your particular game, ones that match your playstyle, or even just ones that are quite powerful. So that is the second avenue of progression throughout your empire. I felt it was important to go over those 2 things now before we get too far into this particular game. So I'm going to unpause the game now and let the timer continue. So that is largely the explore aspect of the game, with our science ships out in the galaxy surveying new systems, looking for resources and habitable worlds. They are completing the explore side of the explore, expand, exploit, exterminate gameplay loop. We're gonna get a bunch of those alerts and events popping up, but as I said, I'm going to be ignoring them. So the next thing I want to talk about is, instead of expanding, I want to talk about the exploit portion of the game. So exploiting involves producing resources by securing particular star systems and various bits of territory. You are able to extract resources from those star systems, and we can in fact do that here in the Sol system. So I'm going to show you really quick in the galaxy map. If you notice underneath the Sol system's name, you'll see that there is a little some numbers there with little symbols of the various resources that are available. When we move the cursor over it, some additional green numbers appear. So the difference between those two is that the green numbers indicate how many resources we are getting from this system, whereas the white ones indicate that there are additional planetary bodies or celestial bodies that we could be using to extract more of that type of resource from. So right now, under the energy credit symbol, you'll see that we are in fact generating 10 energy credits a month from the Sol system. But there is another way we could be getting an additional 3 energy credits each month from the Sol system. There's also 10 minerals that we're generating each month, and we could build a station to get another 2 minerals per month. And you can see that there is also the physics and engineering science symbols. There is a source of 2 points of physics science and a source of 3 points of engineering science. Those would help us unlock technologies faster. So in order to exploit resources in space, you need another type of ship called the construction ship. So I've selected it in the outliner by hitting right on the D-pad and picking it out from my civilian ships. So with the construction ship selected, you can see that over here under Mercury, there is the symbol for energy credits, and there is the yellow 3 icon. That means that Mercury could be potentially producing an additional 3 energy credits for us each month. With our construction ship, by moving the cursor over Mercury, I can then press the A button to open up the list of orders, and one of the options is build a mining station. This will cost us 100 minerals to construct this mining station. By selecting that, our construction ship will fly over to Mercury and begin constructing its mining station. Now, while this is happening, I'm going to pause the game again because we do have additional sources of resource production in the Sol system. One of them is Mars, which is producing 2 points of physics research. There is also the moon of Europa, which is producing 2 points of minerals each month. And lastly, we have Uranus, which is in fact producing 3 points of engineering research. So we can actually chain an order for our construction ship to fly over to Uranus, and instead of building a mining station, it's going to build a research station. Mining stations are for extracting things like energy credits and minerals, and in some cases even alloys from planetary bodies, or celestial bodies, excuse me, whereas research stations tend to produce science from one of the three branches, either physics, society, or engineering science. You use a research station for that. Constructing this will also cost 100 minerals, so I simply press A to confirm, and you will see that there is another orange line extending from the construction ship's order to build a mining station around Mercury. Now it's got another one that goes all the way to Uranus, and you can see that there is a faint green outline of the research station that it will construct. So once it's done with the mining station that it is currently building, it will fly over to Uranus and build us a research station, which will help us produce more science and unlock engineering technologies just a little bit faster. So that is one way to actually exploit the available resources and get them to work for your empire. The other way is to improve the production of resources on your planets. So I'm going to access the planet of Earth by going to the outliner, pressing right on the D-pad, and then using the D-pad to select the planet of Earth. So, in order to produce resources on your planets, you need population, or POPs, and you need jobs for the population to work. So, how do you produce jobs? There's two ways to do it. First up, let's get rid of that. First up, you can produce your basic resources, namely energy credits, minerals, and food, by constructing what are called districts. There are four types of districts that you can produce. You have city districts, which largely create a lot of housing so that you can house more POPs. We finished our research project. And then there's also generator districts, which create jobs to produce energy credits. Mining districts create jobs to produce more minerals. And lastly, you have agriculture districts that create jobs to produce more food. We could use more mineral production, so I'm going to construct a mining district. So by moving our cursor from one of these options here where it says planet status or planetary features, I move it over to the left and press down, and then I move it over the mining district box. I press A, and then it takes me to the middle district details section, and then I press A again to confirm that I want to construct a mining district. And then you'll see that a mining district actually showed up in the build queue. That cost us 270 minerals to queue up production, and it will take a total of 240 days before it is finished. So the mining district will create some jobs for our population to work to produce some additional minerals. But what if we wanted to produce a more advanced resource, say consumer goods or alloys or even more science? We need to construct what is a building. So beneath these four boxes where we pick our districts to construct, we have this 4x4 grid of building slots. Buildings are unlocked as your planets get more population on them. You get another building slot so that you can construct another building and produce more advanced resources. Right now, I think I really want us to improve our output of science. So in order to do that, we need to construct a research labs. So by moving the cursor over one of the empty building slots, which has a big green plus icon in the very middle, I press the A button, and then it opens up in the middle column there. It opens up a list of available buildings that we can construct in this building slot. So by moving all the way down to research labs, thankfully this is in alphabetical order, so it's easy to find what you're looking for. By selecting the cursor over the research labs option, you can see that it will cost 360 minerals and take 328 days, so almost a full year. And then when I press A to construct a research lab, it shows up in the build queue. When that is done, it will create a couple jobs that produce more science, so we should be able to unlock some technologies more quickly. Another thing that you can do is clear some of these tile blockers, as they are called. In order to do that, you move the cursor over planetary features and press the A button, and you'll see that at the very top there's a couple of these blockers which are having a slightly negative impact on your world, on your planet in question or colony. So one of the things that we can clear is these sprawling slums. By moving the cursor over it in the information box on the far right-hand side of the screen, it gives us a little more details. What it is doing is it's reducing our planet's maximum number of districts. It will take 120 days to clear. It will require 300 energy credits, and when it is done, we actually get a human pop, or population. So we get a pop that can work one of the jobs that we just created to improve resource production. So let's clear those sprawling slums. That is one way that you can spend energy credits. There are additional blockers that you can get rid of on your home world in order to have access to more districts that you can construct as well. So let's leave that alone. By doing so, you can see that our production of minerals went up from the plus, I think it was like what, plus 26, and now we are producing more minerals each month. When the research labs are finished, you will see that we are also producing quite a bit more science as well. The amount of engineering research that we were producing jumped from plus 20 to plus 23 because our construction ship finished its construction of the research station around Uranus. So that's pretty cool. Okay, so we need to get back to the galaxy map because we're going to go over the next portion of the 4 X's that I want to discuss, which is expand. So we already talked about exploring with our science ships. We talked about exploiting by constructing stations to extract resources, as well as constructing districts and buildings to create jobs for our population. And next up, I want to go over expanding, which is almost more crucial than all of those other ones, at least in these early portions of the game. So you'll notice that some of these systems, for example, Alpha Centauri and Sirius, have this interesting little kind of green circular icon. That indicates that there are habitable worlds in those systems. You'll see that there is also one here around the system of Araya, but it is in fact red. When the symbol is either red or yellow, that means that there are habitable worlds there, but they have a low habitability compared to ones that are indicated by this green icon. So here in Sirius, by moving our cursor directly over that green icon, it shows that there is a continental world that is potentially habitable in the Sirius system. That sounds like a really, really good candidate for a new colony. So what we need to do is construct a starbase in that system and then begin the colonization process. We cannot construct a starbase in a system that has not been fully surveyed. So, for example, if I take our construction ship and try to build a starbase in this system over here that we haven't even explored, you'll see that it is not an option. Another good example would be if I take this science ship and I move it to this unexplored system. I'm just going to tell it to move there for the time being. Until the system gets fully surveyed, we will not be able to construct a starbase in there. Should be just a moment before it gets there. Actually, it'll take longer than I expected. Okay, so you might be wondering, why do you want to construct a starbase in other systems? And the reason for that is simple. Starbases expand your territory. By expanding our territory into Barnard's Star, we could then also construct a mining station around Barnard's Star in order to make use of the 5 energy credits it's producing. Right now, as you can see, it is blocked out from building a mining station around Barnard's Star because this star is not within our borders. So first we would have to build a starbase in Barnard's Star to extend our territory out to that system, and then we could build a mining station. But more importantly, we need a starbase to extend our territory into the Sirius system in order to be able to colonize this potentially habitable world of Sirius 3. So there are other sources of additional resources available in the Sirius system that we could also use to improve our resource production. So let's go ahead and take our construction ship. Now that the Sirius system has been surveyed, we can take our construction ship and order it to construct a starbase in the galaxy view. And as you can see, this will cost us alloys again, but it will also cost us influence. Expanding your territory costs influence. There are ways to reduce this influence cost as time goes on through either technologies or traditions. But for now, it will cost us 90 alloys and 75 influence. So let's go ahead and order our construction ship to construct a starbase in the Sirius system. Once that's done, you'll see that this little band of our territory, which currently only encompasses the Sol system, will in fact extend and also encompass the Sirius system. From there, we can then colonize any habitable worlds, and we can also build stations in space to exploit the resources that are available in that system. Now, if you'll notice, we have a science ship down here in the system of Feldazir, but because it is not fully surveyed, we cannot build a starbase to extend our territory to that system. So whenever you want to expand your territory and colonize new worlds, it's a three-step process. You first need your science ship to survey the system, and then once it is done surveying, you can use a construction ship to construct a starbase in that system, which will extend your territory. And lastly, if there is a habitable world in that system that you have just constructed a new starbase, you may then colonize it. So the three steps are survey, starbase, colonize. This is super duper important because in order to actually have a powerful empire down the road, you want to expand your territory as much as possible and colonize a lot of viable planets that are available for habitation. So now that we have a starbase in the Sirius system, if we go back to Galaxy View, you'll see that our territory did extend out to the Sirius system as well. Now, for the most part, you largely want to be building starbases into systems that are right next to a system you already have in your territory. The reason for that is it costs less influence. The farther away that a system is from your currently established territory, the more influence it will cost. So as you can see here, if I tried to build a starbase in the Araya system while skipping over the Ovani system, instead of costing 75 influence, it would cost 150 influence to do so. We would still add the Araya system to our territory, but it just costs more influence to do it. So you're better off just going one system at a time so that you can grab more systems and therefore extract the resources from more systems as time goes on. So now that we have this starbase in Sirius, we can construct a mining station around Sirius A to have it producing more energy credits for us. And there is also a source of some society research here around Sirius 5A. So we can go ahead and chain our construction ship in order to build a research station around Sirius 5A. That will have us producing a little bit more society research as well, so that we can unlock those technologies even faster. So, the last little thing I want to show you is how to colonize a new world. As you can see, Sirius 3 is a pretty sweet looking world. It's rated at 95% habitability, which is really, really good. 80% and higher is generally quite good, and that is a very viable candidate for a new colony. The habitability is determined by the climate of the world, because this is a continental world, which is in fact just the exact same climate as our home world of Earth. Then that makes this world very, very habitable for us. So we can go ahead and colonize it. There's two ways to begin the colonization process. You can either hit right on the D-pad and go to one of your shipyards in the outliner and then construct a colony ship at the shipyard. And once it is constructed, you select the colony ship and order it to colonize that planet. But there's a far easier way. Now that we have the Sirius system in our territory, we can select the Sirius 3 planet, and you'll see that there is in fact a box here that we can move the cursor over called Colonize. When you select this option, it gives you a list of viable species, or I should say all the species that would be in your empire that can colonize this world. Since we only have our human species, we simply keep the cursor over the human selection. This will cost us 200 food, 200 alloys, and 200 consumer goods in order to colonize, as that is the cost of a colony ship. So we press the A button, and then we are given the option to rename our colony. And of course, you can give it a custom name if you want. There are some words that are, of course, censored, and I do believe it's different depending on which platform you're playing on. So you obviously can't name it anything under the sun, but you can give it some pretty creative names as time goes on. And there is, of course, the random option to give it a randomized name that the game generates for you. Once you confirm the name of the colony, if you back out of the planetary screen, you'll notice that your shipyard is in fact constructing a colony ship all on its own. You did not have to tell it to do so. And the other thing, too, is that as soon as that colony ship has completed construction, it will automatically begin flying into the Sirius system, flying towards this planet of Sirius 3, and it will begin the colonization process. This is much easier, in my opinion, than going to your shipyard, selecting build colony ship, and then ordering the colony, and then selecting the colony ship itself and trying to order it to colonize a planet. It's very easy for new players to lose track of where things are in the galaxy map and which system had that habitable planet that you really want to start colonizing. So if you do it in the method that I just showed you, where you instead select the planet that is in your territory you want to colonize, and you select the colonize option, choose it from there, the process begins automatically, and there is very little that you have to do beyond that. So that was the last thing I really wanted to show you. From here, the story of your empire is entirely yours to make. You can continue expanding your territory by constructing more star bases to acquire more resources. You can also grab more territory in order to secure more potential colonies. For example, there is another continental world here in the system of Alpha Centauri. So if I wanted to, I could construct a starbase here in the Sugela system and then into Alpha Centauri, and then begin colonizing the world here as well. I don't necessarily want to do that in the Araya system because the habitable world that is available there is an Arctic world and only has 25% habitability, which isn't terribly viable for us right now. I still could do that, but I don't really want to, so I'm going to leave it alone for the time being. So with our construction ship, we're constructing a starbase in the Ovani system. We have our science ships that are kind of just sitting pretty, not doing anything. So I can go ahead and order this science ship to survey the Feldenzir system, because I want to I might want to build a starbase in that system in the future. Now, the UNS Hubble, as you can see, we lost the scientist. He might have died. So we can recruit a new one by going to the Manage tab, select Recruit Leader, and we go to Recruit New Leader, pick a new scientist that we want. Let's just go with the youngest one, and then we can see that he is available. By selecting him, he is now assigned to this science ship in question, and we can continue surveying and discovering the mysteries of the galaxy. Okay, so that construction ship has finished his construction over there, and looking in the Sirius system, our colony ship is in fact closing in on the planet that we wanted to establish a new colony on. And because this is our first colony, we'll get an alert in just a second that the colonization process has begun. So with the colony ship in orbit over the planet, in just a second, it will begin the colonization process, and there you go, the first human colony. We actually get some engineering research for it, and there is, as usual, some flavor text that you can read discussing the event. So that actually covers it for this video. I fully expected it to be a long one, but as I said, what happens from this point onwards is entirely up to you. Continue exploring the galaxy, expanding your territory, exploiting the resources within, and maybe even down the road, engaging in a little extermination. So that should cover everything I wanted to go over in this particular video for brand new players to quickly get a grasp on some of the game's mechanics, surveying new star systems, constructing stations out in space to produce more resources, constructing a starbase to extend your territory, colonizing new worlds, selecting new technologies, adopting traditions, recruiting leaders, and constructing districts and buildings on your planets to improve their production. I do hope this really gives a leg up for brand new players to Stellaris Console Edition on both Xbox and PlayStation platforms alike. And most importantly, I hope you really enjoy trying out Stellaris Console Edition for the first time. It's a brand new game full of discoveries and wonder, just waiting for you to figure them out. If you enjoyed this particular video, please give it a thumbs up, leave a comment down below if there was anything you were having difficulty with, and whether or not this particular video really gave you a leg up. If you would like to see more Stellaris Console Edition content, please subscribe to the channel, click the bell icon so you're notified whenever I upload a new video. The goal for 2021 is to try and hit 10,000 subscribers by the end of December. It's a pretty tall order, but I think we can do it together, so I do hope you join us on the road to 10K. There are also several links in the description below that I want you to check out. You'll find one for the official Stellaris Discord channel, where you can become part of the greater Stellaris community. There's a big section for us Console Edition players to talk about the game, ask questions, discuss strategies, and even set up multiplayer matches, because there are members from both platforms in that particular Discord. So if you want to be part of an active and populous community where there's discussions going on every day, it's a good place to be. You'll also find some links to my own personal stuff as well. For example, you'll find one to my Twitch channel where I do stream Stellaris Console Edition at least twice a week. Once things are back to a regular schedule, should be the Tuesdays and Fridays that I am streaming Stellaris Console Edition, but you can also come by on the other days. Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, 7 o'clock Mountain Time is the normal schedule. Stay tuned via Twitter, which is also linked in the description below, when my streams will be back up and running. Twitter is a really good way to keep in touch with me, and I post important announcements there all the time. Last but not least, there is a link to my own personal Discord channel for fans of my content to freely join. It's not necessary whatsoever to be a part of, but if you want to have a smaller, less active, more personable kind of community where you can talk about Stellaris Console Edition with other players as well, it's a decent place to be. Hopefully I'll see you there or in one of the Twitch live streams. Thank you very much for watching. This is Mobius signing off for now, and I hope to see you again real soon.